getting to know each other, networking, and learning about new technical topics and the best current practices as well. So we are all gathered here for these next 3 days to learn and to network with and engage with each other, and also with APNIC activities. As you probably would have seen outside, we have product demos, and we have a number of activities going on as well as the members lounge. So take part in all those activities and let us know how your feedback, any improvements that we can make for the future conferences. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Nathaniel Rowe here to give the whakatua. Nathaniel is the local rangatira. I'm making myself, to pronounce those names. He's basically the leader who has a strong mana whenua kinship ties here in Te Whangua Atara, Wellington, to the local Iwi tribes. He is here with a delegation of Iwi representatives to formally welcome us in a traditional way here and open the APNIC 58 ceremony with their blessings. So I invite Nathaniel.
Tākina te au ka riri, tākina te au ka ngua, tākina ngā au o te tonga, tākina ngā au o te wanganui atara. Nā tai eke ngā o tā wiri mātea tākina i arango te whenua. Ko rongo ki te waka tūpua, ko rongo ki te waka tāwito, e rū i te one i uta, e rū i te one i tai, e rū i a ranginui e tūnei, e rū i a papatu anuku e takoto nei, e rū i a tangaroa. Pue u te one pākini te one ko te one itua ka makawārua, karanga tūpua, karanga tāwito, ki tōna waka māroro au. He toka aumi i aroa, he toka aumi i rongo mau, ki a mākoa i te hauriri, ki a mākoa i te haunguha, heke heke iho i te rangi kātutu aniwaniwa. Ngā au oro ki wa o i te haupā mai wa o, ngā auriri ki te au mārino o te wanganui i atara. I te au i te pō, i te au i te pō, hau a whio, hau mā takataka, hau no te awa o te ora, o te āti awa taranaki wānui, hau ki te wanganui i atara e ai. E rongo whakairihia ke kirunga turuturu o whiti whakamaua kia tīna, haumie huie, taiki e. Tuatahi rā e te iti e te rai, tēnei ka mihi atu ki a koutou e kawea mai nei i raro e te taumarumaru o tō tātou maunga e tu atu rā, a rā ko matairangi. Nau mai piki mai ki te au o te tonga, nau mā ara mai ki tērā wanganui, wangaroa o Taraika, a rā ko te wanganui i atara. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, it's morning, eh? Just have to preface, first of all, my name is Nate, and I do actually have to shoot off after this because I've got to go and do Parliament. You'll see to me a picture here of a rangatira, a leader, a man or a person that symbolises a key thing, because he's just recently passed. He's our Māori king, or one of the two kings of our country and society, King I tū hei te apōta tau te whero te tuawhetu, the 7th Māori king. He passed recently. And I want to share with you just one of the kōrero that he left at his most recent coronation that was a few weeks back in a place called Tūranga Waiwai. He spoke about ko tahitanga and working together, or unity and working in harmony or harmoniously. And so my mihi goes to him as well. E tō tātou kingi e kingi tū hei tia hoki mai anō ki tērā kāhui āriki kai reirara te kāui o te kauika. You will be remembered forever in our thoughts and our minds, and in the oceans of our thoughts and our hearts. Farewell, go back to the place of home, wherever that may be in the realm, in the spiritual realm. Nō reira e te kingi, haere hoki mai anō. So I'll leave you with this. Very humble to come on the behalf of the local iwi here, Te Atiawa Taranaki Whānui, to open your kaupapa, which surrounds the internet, or what we call ipurangi in our language. What I recited at the beginning of my speech there was what we call a karakia, or a recitation of a few words that speaks to something that can help ground your kaupapa. It talks about our capital city's most famous taonga, or what we're known for internationally, nationally, and locally. You might have heard the words ho, ho, hoa, fio, fio, ho, 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 ma, taka, taka, which talks of the beautiful southerly winds of Wellington, something we are known for famously, that cancels all the flights, that gives you all the goosebumps. But also, there is a saying in that karakia that says you can't beat Wellington on a good day either. And every time I've done that karakia, I've got an 80% strike rate of the sun coming out later on in the afternoon, so you can thank me later and you can enjoy Wellington on a good day. The last thing I'll say, I'll liken the winds of that of the internet. The winds here in Wellington carry the vibrations, they carry the stories, they carry the feelings and all of the things that we experience in life. So as you're walking around Wellington today, the name of this convention centre, Tākina, means to engage. And so as you engage, like the winds, here in Wellington, in your conference, you create what we call a collective wānanga, a collective space of learning and sharing. So from that good thought, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa. Now, my auntie's not here to do a waiata, but we've got our whānau over here.
Thank you, Mr. Nathaniel. I know you are in a rush to go, and Evie representative as well for your blessings. On behalf of APNIC, I extend our deepest condolences to the people of New Zealand and the Maori people on the passing of His Majesty King Tuhetia. Our special thoughts and prayers will be with you at these most difficult and heartbreaking times. With those blessings with the Iwi tribes, we would like to move on with the conference opening ceremony. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce and welcome the guests here in front row seated. Vivian Medabon, Chief Executive of Internet NZ. Kenny Huang, Chair APNIC Executive Council. Sarai Tevita, from PKI SOC and organizer of PAC IGL. She should be probably here. Yeah, she's here. Jerong Lo, incoming Director General APNIC. I'll call upon your name to come and give your welcome remarks. So first off, I would like to invite Kenny Huang, Chair of the APNIC Executive Council, to deliver his welcome speech.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kenny Huang, Chair of APNIC Executive Council. It is my great honor to welcome you to APNIC 58 in Wellington. We are delighted to be hosted by Internet NZ, especially with the great support from the CEO, Vivian. And Internet NZ is an organization that shares our commitment to advance an inclusive, secure, and open internet for all. It's always a pleasure to meet a lot of old friends and new faces. It also symbolizes the evolution of the internet. The internet is not connected by devices. It is connected by people like you. You are the internet builder. The discussion and policy making in the next few days will shape the future of the internet in our region and beyond. For newcomer and new participant, the guardian of the internet galaxy are all around here. I encourage you to talk to them, learn from them. That will be a fantastic journey you ever had. This year marked a very important, significant transition for APNIC. we are excited to announce the appointment of Jia Long Luo as the new Director General of APNIC. Jia Long brings profound experience and a very good exercise, and also with a very good vision. We are confident that Jia Long's leadership will guide us into a new era of growth and collaboration. So at the same time, I'd like to express our deepest gratitude to Mr. Paul Wilson, who just stepped down after a remarkable 25 years as Director General of APNIC. Paul's contribution basically shaped our organization and also advanced the global internet community. His legend and legacy will continue to inspire us. So Wellington, with its vibrant tech community and forward-thinking spirit, is perfect setting for our discussion. So over the next few days, let's seize the opportunity to exchange ideas and address the challenges and explore new possibilities. Thank you to Internet NZ for your generous hospitality, and to all participants for your continued dedication. Let's make APNIC 58 a landmark event for the global internet community. Kia ora. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenny, for your welcome remarks. Now I would like to invite our incoming Director General, Jia Long Luo.
Hi everyone, my name is Jarong. I'm the old new kid on the block. So quite a number of you know me already from my previous capacity. And for those who don't, allow me to introduce myself. I'm from Singapore. I speak 3 languages, English, Mandarin, and Vietnamese. So if you can speak Mandarin and Vietnamese, feel free to switch languages with me at any time. I have 3 kids, 2 boys, 7 and 6 years old, and a new baby girl who is just 2 months. So I couldn't have timed it any better right now to be starting a new job. But this is an opportunity of a lifetime, and I'm grateful to the EC, led by our chair, Kenny, and also led by the search committee, Rupinder, for choosing me. Work-wise, I had worked for ICANN for 11 years. I looked after the ICANN regional office. APNIC is a sister organization to ICANN, which all of you know. And Paul Wilson has always been my regional counterpart and partner throughout my 11 years at ICANN. So I never imagined Paul to ever step down. But life has its seasons, and so here I am, stepping into very big shoes, both figuratively, and I think his shoe size is also bigger than mine. I would be officially starting until 1st October. Otherwise, my wife would be quite upset because we have a newborn at home. But I hope to have the chance this week to meet with you and to learn from all of you, and hope to have your support to work closely with you in my new role. Now, I can trace the beginnings of my journey in the internet space back to APNIC. My first APNIC meeting was actually in 2013 in Xi'an. That's why I said I'm the old new boy. And at the time, it was just less than a month into my new role, then at ICANN. And for those who know, I used to be a diplomat. I worked for the Singapore government. And in the diplomat corps, people in some ways are your friends because they want something from you. And coming to this community, I was so surprised. Everyone was so open, welcoming to an outsider like me. And at the time, I came in a suit. So everyone knew I was an outsider. And many of you now still remain friends to this day. And actually, quite a bit of my technical knowledge can also be credited to APNIC, having been taught directly by APNIC's experts, and also through partnering APNIC in various activities, including technical workshops. Now, I've always been very impressed by the APNIC team, from the way they conduct their work, as you all know, and can see at this meeting, and I'm sure you all agree with me. So please also join me to thank them for this meeting's arrangements. So even though I have a new baby and my hands are full, I'm choosing to take up this role because of you, this wonderful community, and also the excellent APNIC team, which I will now be a part of, and most importantly, the mission. I've always thought a career that has meaning. I sit at ICANN and the internet governance space for 11 years because of the mission, to maintain a single global internet. This is a mission that APNIC and this community shares. I said that in many ways, this mission is even more meaningful than my previous job in the Singapore Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The Foreign Affairs Ministry's mission is to defend Singapore's national interest. Our mission is to defend the global internet. So despite all the things that people don't like about the internet really has benefited humankind, all of us. And I think we all agree we would be worse off if the internet becomes fragmented. And unfortunately, this is the exact landscape that we are in right now. Globally, the internet governance ecosystem is seeing unprecedented pressure. Issues such as privacy, security, together with the potential impact of new technologies like AI, have spurred governments to act. We can only expect more action, such as regulation, which could impact the technical or network layer we are in. For example, the US FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, is looking into BGP routing security. We can only expect this trend to continue. Now, stakeholders, particularly some governments, are questioning our multi-stakeholder model's ability to deliver relevant and timely policies. They are also wondering how many of us are really participating. Where is the Asia-Pacific voice? Where is the global voice? Now, the regional internet registries, the RRs, are also under the spotlight with AFRINIC's situation. Among other things, this has been conveniently paired with the need for RRs to raise fees, and they're questioning whether RRs are sustainable institutions that can continue to deliver our important function. But actually, costs have been rising post-pandemic and is affecting everybody. All that said, at our core, we best defend the internet by delivering our mission. Fundamentally, we support the growth and development of the internet through the allocation of number resources to our members. We will need to partner with you to further strengthen our governance. We need your participation. This is especially important for APNIC to deliver relevant and timely policies, particularly against a backdrop where new technologies could impact the addressing space. Accountability and transparency remain key as all internet governance organizations are under scrutiny. Amid rising costs, we will need to partner with you to prioritize. We can't do everything at once. As the saying goes, a good compromise leaves everyone unhappy. Prioritizing also doesn't mean that we don't do something completely. It just means that we have to put some things down first, then we come back to that later. And I hope we can achieve a common understanding about this. We will need to put our resources to defend the global internet governance ecosystem. This is important because if the internet fragments, there will be no internet for us to serve you anyway. We'll need your help to increase awareness of the technical community's role to key stakeholders in your economies and to help us to engage them. In our region, relationships, fostering mutual understanding, and collaboration is rooted in our DNA as a community. So let's lean into these strengths, and together, I'm confident that we will rise above the challenges facing us. Just as Kenny said, the internet is about our people. It is us as a community. And I'd like to say, we are the internet. So I hope to spend this week with you to learn about your priorities and to explore collaborating with you as I step into my new role. In the coming weeks and months, your feedback and inputs will help me further scope our priorities. So if you see me in the corridors, please feel free to come and say hi. Don't need to be shy. I think I have a friendly face. So I do hope to keep in touch with everybody and to work with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerong. Yeah, please take time to meet with him during the breaks and everything. Those who attended the newcomer session just before, I don't think Jerong was in the room there. We had a quiz on who is the new incoming Director General. And some of them who selected Jet Li, Andy Lau, you know now who is the new Director General of APNIC, right? Thank you so much, Jerome. So next up, I would like to invite our guest from the local host, Internet NZ, Vivian Maidon, the Chief Executive. Please.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Celtic nā tupuna whakapaparanga mai, ko ti tiriti o Waitangi, ti piringa mō tātou katoa. Ko Aotearoa taku u kaipo, ko Parihaka te moa ngā tapu, ko Hātia te awa, ko Whangarei te kāinga noho. Ko Vivian Maidon nā hau, ko o te tumu whakarai Ipurangi Aotearoa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. So I begin today with my pepeha, my introduction, and it tells you my ancestors are of Celtic descent, that I stand here in Aotearoa because of the Treaty of Waitangi, a treaty between the Māori people of Aotearoa and the Queen of England, actually. And this land is the land of my heart. I have a sacred mountain, and I'm sure you do too, called Parihaka, and my river is called Hātia. Whangarei is the town where I lived in the very north of New Zealand. And these are all things about me that tell you of my identity, my place, my ancestral line. And maybe there is something in there that connects to you, your identity, your place, your ancestral line, your joy in your sacred mountain, or a river you take your children to, or your pride and responsibility to live in the ways that your ancestors have laid down for you. My name is Vivian Maidon, and my job is the Chief Executive at Internet New Zealand, but so much more, which is true too of all of you. So one of the many gifts of the tangata whenua, the people of this land, to New Zealanders, all of us, is about how we find and form connection. And of course, the internet is a very modern way of doing that. But in the end, it's about those places we've been to that are special, the people that we've met, the connections we have with them. And I want to welcome you here in the spirit of connection and of shared stories. I'm thinking about our cousins from across the Pacific with so much shared knowledge. And just recently, a group of us were in Taipei meeting new friends and new connections and new places to honour. So in welcoming you, I want to acknowledge Paul Wilson and what he offered and supported me as a new incoming chief executive into this internet, the world of the internet. Actually, we met for the first time in Washington, not even 2 years ago, and he said, we're going to have an APNIC meeting in Wellington, and I'm going, a what? And he kept saying, APNIC, and I'm going, what language is that? And I'm going, could you say that slowly? A-P-NIC. Look, I just could not get it. It was so fast, I couldn't actually hear the word. And so, you know, the Asia Pacific is such a big part of the world. It is a huge part of our whole world. And I want to welcome that huge community here and think about and kind of vision how we can build the voice of Asia Pacific in this global internet world more and more. So I welcome each of you from each of your countries here to Whanganui Atara and look forward to meeting you as we listen and learn and celebrate the work of the internet. So when I first met Paul and Pablo, actually, from that weird organisation called APNIC. You know, I decided that the very best thing I could do today was wear the t-shirt. So I understand now what APNIC does. I've sat in the offices in Brisbane and met with staff, and I'm totally thrilled to have you here in Aotearoa. E haru taku toa, i te toa takitahi, engari e toa takitini. Success is not the work of an individual, but the work of many, of us all. And if we're going to have an open, interoperable, secure and safe internet, that's the work we hold between us. Kia ora tātou, thank you.
Thank you, Vivian, for your kind words and also for hosting us here in Wellington and for wearing the t-shirt as well to be part of the APNIC community. We do emphasize AP in our logo there to say it's APNIC, not APNIC. Finally, I would like to invite the PACIG of organizer and from PKISOC representative as well, Sarai Tevita, for her welcome speech.
Wow, it's packed in here. Kia ora, Pacific warm greetings to you all. Talofa lava. I'm Sarai Tevita from Samoa, the Pacific Islands. And it's a great pleasure and honor to stand before you today as we convene for this significant gathering of the APNIC, not APNIC, conference. So on behalf of the Pacific Islands chapter of Internet Society, we call ourselves PKISOC, and the Pacific community, I extend our deepest gratitude to the organizers, our sister or uncle or grandpa or grandma, APNIC, for allowing us to co-locate our PACIGF here in Wellington with APNIC 58 conference. So can we give a warm applause to APNIC? Because this platform, it gives us an opportunity to discuss, collaborate, and shape the future of the internet governance and infrastructure in our region. Yesterday, we successfully concluded the Pacific IGF 2024, organized by our PKISOC, and the support, great support, from APNIC, Internet and Share, thank you, Vivian, Auda, thank you, Rosemary, and the team, Diplo Foundation EU, APTRD, and UNESCO, with our theme, Strengthening Digital Governance and Resilience in the Pacific Islands. So again, PKISOC acknowledge APNIC. Pacific Islands scattered across the vast blue expanse of the Pacific Ocean represent a diverse and vibrant region, rich in culture, tradition, and community. For many of us, geographic isolation, limited infrastructure, and high cost of internet access are daily realities. These challenges are compounded by the threats posed by climate change, which not only affect our lands, but also our digital resilience. Yes, despite these obstacles, we remain steadfast in our commitment to leveraging the power of the internet to foster development, education, innovation, across our communities. As we heard this morning, internet is not just about the technology, the machines, the equipment, it's people. The Pacific perspective is one that emphasizes collaboration and inclusivity. We understand that no single island, no matter how resilient, can navigate the digital tides alone. Our strength lies in our country, our unity, in our ability to come together, share knowledge, and support one another in the spirit of solidarity. In these true forums like APNIC we have today, that we can amplify our voices and ensure that the specific needs and aspirations of the Pacific are recognized and addressed. We are here to advocate for better connectivity, affordable access, and development of local content that reflects on languages, cultures, and identities. The Pacific Islands are committed to being active participants in the global digital ecosystem because we are so remote, we are so scattered, we are not connected like the big countries, like Europe, Asia. We are eager to embrace new technologies, from improving our cybersecurity to harnessing the potential of emerging innovations like blockchain and AI in ways that benefit our people and protect our unique cultural heritage. We are also committed to ensuring that digital development is sustainable and inclusive, leaving no one behind. So let me reaffirm that Pacific Islands are not just passive recipients of our global digital trends. We are contributors. We are innovators. We are leaders in our own right. We bring to the table a rich cultural tapestry, a deep respect for community, and a profound understanding of the importance of connectivity in today's world. As the new director said this morning, we are the internet. So, to close up with my opening remarks, as a Pacific Islander, as an organizer with the APNIC, together we can ensure the digital future we build is one that empowers every Pacific Islander or APNIC, strengthens our communities, and honors the legacy of our ancestors. Thank you, and I look forward to the fruitful exchanges of outcomes that these events will undoubtedly produce. Baftai.
Thank you, Sarah, and great to know that you had a successful event here, and happy to support Package F in Wellington. Before we move on to the keynotes, we have a small entertainment, opening entertainment. Please welcome Mount Cook Primary School students for a haka performance. Come in, guys. Thank you for that beautiful performance, guys, and thanks for being here as well. I hope you all enjoyed that. The next generation internet users performance here. I just used that word, I would like now to go into the keynotes. We have 2 keynotes today. So I would like to invite the first keynote speaker, Robin Kamira, Managing Director, Power Interface Limited, to deliver a keynote on telecommunication stories from the front line, what matters. Robin? Okay. We will have your slides up on the screen. So if you have your notes, you can bring them on. Moving forward slides, and you can see the slides here.
Okay. Kia ora mai tātou katoa. Tuatahi te mihi kia koutou katoa ki te mana whenua o tēnei rohe, ko te ati awa taranaki a tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou ki ngā hau e whā, all of you from the Four Winds, ki ngā kaimahi to APNIC organisers, and I especially want to give a mihi to those tamariki, those children who just shared their song and haka with us. So tēnā koutou, I know they can't hear me. My name is Robin Kamira. I'm a little bit nervous because I'm the first keynote, but I am followed by the wonderful John Brewer right after me. So you've got a couple of exciting, maybe aligned kōrero keynotes coming up. I had a sneak peek at John's presentation, and it was really helpful because that's when I realised that you're all coming from all of these different places in the world, and that anything I talk about, I have to put in context. So thank you, John, for that. So I'm going to try and do that so I don't lose you, because I definitely have a New Zealand Aotearoa context, and I want to make sure that you're able to follow me as I take you down this little track of some of the frontline stories that we have. Right, testing the green button. Oh, just before I do, you'll see the bottom there, my LinkedIn address. That's the way to contact me, and you'll see why I'd like you to do that. For those of you who find that there's something in this keynote that is of interest to you, I would love to hear from you after this. I have to leave in the afternoon, so I may not be around after 3 o'clock. So what am I going to talk about today? There are a couple of things in those projects that are similar to each other. The first one is Miti Miti on the Grid, which began in 2014, and it was a black spot. This one is really about a remote community that we got onto the mobile network, and then one day it was not. I'll tell you that story soon. The second one is Tuatea. Tuatea is the Māori word for the spectrum. And as a result of probably 20, almost 30 years of treaty claims, keep in mind that here we have the Treaty of Waitangi, which Vivian talked about. It was a signed treaty between Queen Victoria at the time in England and the hapu, the sub-tribes of Māori all around the country, not all of them, but a lot of them. That treaty still exists, and there are claims in progress, and have been for some years now, around treaty breaches that were made. So Tuatea negotiated with the Crown. I was part of their negotiation team to bring spectrum over to Māori hands. So that's a really interesting story. And there is a Māori Tech workforce program just starting within that company organisation. And the third one is Cybersecurity 99. It's new. It's a subsidiary of my other company, Power Interface. So Power Interface is a fully Māori-owned company, 22 years old. And then less than a month ago, we registered Cybersecurity 99, and that is also about workforce, but it's also about cybersecurity inequity around the world, which I'm sure a lot of you will be familiar with. So let's go to Miti Miti on the Grid. This photo, you can see all the walls are off. They're doing a bit of building. The building that is there was built in 1953. It was the same year and the same weeks that happened when my great-grandfather passed away. And so there are stories about what was happening in the building and what was happening with his illness. He was considered to be a tohunga. He wrote, he was a knowledge keeper. He wrote for all of his life the old knowledge, the old traditional knowledge of Māori, to preserve it. And he was one of many, many writers around the country at that time. They wrote for 100 years to try and preserve the knowledge in the face of colonisation, religion, education, and political changes that were happening. So I remember this building, was this original building, the roof was going up the same week that he passed away. So here we are in 2014, the building was in terrible repair. There was no heating. I think there was one PowerPoint in it and the walls were kind of falling off. They were successful in becoming a part of a program called DIY Marae, which was a television program where they bring everybody in for a weekend, you know, hundreds of people sometimes and a building team, and they all sort this building out. So that's what was happening in this picture. There were about 150 people that turned up over that weekend. But here's the cool thing about it, the walls were coming off, so we were able to put cables into those walls. So where is this place? On the right-hand side you can see Aotearoa, you can see New Zealand. Some of you would have noticed the logo for APNIC is a stylised stingray, right? If you look at the North Island there, and where Wellington is, we're at the head of the fish. And if Te Whanganui Atara is the head of the fish, Wellington. So the fish is facing upside down, right? And then if you go up the North Island, you can see the fins, and then you go to the end and you see the tail. I'm from the tail of the fish. And if you look at this map here, I've got a timer over it, but you don't, do you? Yeah. If you look at the map on the right-hand side, we're in a very far north region. It's very subtropical, and there's a close-up there as well. The map on the left, the close-up, has a body of water, if you look slightly to the south, called the Hokianga. That is where the first landfall was made by our ancestor after navigating through the Pacific. His name was Kupe. That's where he came in for our vision of a story for the very first time, and our people settled the Hokianga region. And my tribal area is from the north side of that region, where that little locator is my marae, my traditional gathering place for my hapu. If we go back to that map, whoops, back arrow. If we go back to that map on that waterway, on the south side, this is where this next photo is taken, looking over to the north side. And the north side, we're sand dune people. These are mountainous sand dunes. There are lots of stories about these sand dunes. Some of them are kind of ghostly and mysterious. But nestled on the other side of these sand dunes, if you had a four-wheel drive and drove up that coast for half an hour, you would get to Mitimiti. So here's Mitimiti. When I was young, that vegetation on the hills behind those buildings used to be all sand. And then over the decades, vegetation has spread across, but underneath that are the sand dunes. So this is our marae, and this was during the DIY Marae TV program where everybody turned up. There's a marquee at the bottom to provide more room to sleep, so there are full of mattresses for the workers to sleep in. The workers were relations, volunteers. I had the job of painting the fence. And at the same time, there was an opportunity, as I said, to put cables into those walls, put a femtocell up on the pole, put some access points everywhere, and get this place humming. In 2014, we knew, according to research, that if you fibre up a community, you impact its economy in a positive way, and that after 2 years, you can measure that impact. There's also the multiplier effect. There are flow-ons. When an economy is strong, there's more spending power, and there's a flow-on effect to other parts of the economy as well. And that the long-term return on that is quite high, 6.7 times than that of a non-digital investment. So in 2014, we thought, why don't we fibre up Mitimiti? Mitimiti on the Grid is what we called it. It was the precursor to the nationwide marae connectivity program for the New Zealanders who know about that. We used RBI 1. I understand it was the first connection to RBI 1. What was the problem we were trying to solve? Well, we were in a black spot, remember. In 1 year, we counted 28 floods and slips that stopped that community from leaving. Couldn't get emergency services, no supplies, and the only way to get out was a landline, which was okay, but perhaps in 2014 we would expect a bit more. The copper line was for emergency communication installers today. They still have those outages. Nearest cell tower was on the other side of that harbour. It was a Vodafone tower, and you had to wait for low tide, run out with your phone at low tide, and then hopefully get a connection. The local businesses were saying that they cannot run their businesses, they couldn't do online banking, they couldn't shop online, and they couldn't even look after their own websites because the loading time was so small. One person told us that for his business he couldn't receive payments. It took half an hour to load the bank site to be able to transact. Some of those businesses shut down and they've never come back up again. 3-hour return trip to the nearest chemist, doctor, shops in Kaitaia, and the roads are quite rough, so they were often also damaged and couldn't be accessed. And then the urban drift, which happened in the 1950s, and my father's and grandparents' generation, was still happening there in 2014 in this place. So I was talking to Jonathan. Is he in the room? Jonathan from Chorus? This is Chorus and Vodafone working together at the marae to put some cables through. That's Stuart Lindstrom there. He was instrumental in helping us get sponsorship from Chorus to bring the fibre down from the school, which is about 2 k's away, over to this marae. And that's Russell Burt from Vodafone. They were working together. They did say it was very rare for them to work together. These companies are often in competition with each other. That's Russell again up on a cherry picker, and that's me screwing something into that pole. That pole had an access point, the femto cell, and a CCTV camera looking out to the sea so that the home people could see what they call home, and they could see that ocean out to the Pacific, Tasman Sea and Pacific. It was all remotely managed. The network was remotely managed, usually by 2 of us, but there were 3 or 4 that could log into that and sort things out if need be. And then we had workshops with the locals, so that in that room there, which was actually the laundry, there was a network box. We took photos, we labelled everything for them, we showed them what the things kind of did, what they were called, blinking lights that should be on or not on, and we set them up so that they could troubleshoot simple things like a power outage, but when they rang us, they could name the objects and talk about what they were seeing, so the remote team, wherever they were, mostly Auckland or further afield, could help them troubleshoot. That's what resilience looks like. It's when you train a community to do its first level troubleshooting, and often we don't do that, and there has been some discussion in the telco sector about the fact that we don't do that, but we should. So when we have a cyclone, like recently Cyclone Gabrielle is being talked about, where there were some serious weather events, flooding, and communities were cut off, they didn't have this first level support in their communities, so there was possibility that some of them were cut off much longer than they needed to be for the simple task of flicking a switch or pulling something out and putting it back in. The remote team was all volunteers, and as I said, the remote troubleshooting was so easy because the local people had been trained in the basic level. If they had a power outage and something happened, they would call me on the landline. I was the first one to get the call. Something's happened. And then the landline was stuck to a wall over there. They'd shout my answer to someone over there who would shout it to the person in the network room, and they'd be shouting back and forth until it was fixed. But there were no serious events, no serious outages, I guess, over all that time. We had lots of workshops, of course. You've got the internet, what are you going to do with it? So the locals requested workshops that would help them tell their own historical stories, stories with locals. They had fun. It wasn't just about using the internet, it was learning things and having fun and capturing things that are important to them. This one on the same day was learning to edit and upload to YouTube. There we go. Here's some numbers. The population at the time was around 80. Prior to getting Miti on the Grid live, of course, we had no users because there was no internet. We counted, after the first 3 years, 9,000 users, mostly locals, but also visitors were coming and staying longer. There were more events. In the build stage from 2014 to 2015, all the equipment was either donated or sponsored, and I have to shout out to Internet NZ because my memory, I think it was in the build stage, was me writing an application to help buy some of the equipment for this project. So kia ora Internet NZ. The leverage stage, 2015 to 2018, was, okay, we're getting used to this, how are we going to use it? Again, everything was donated. Volunteer hours, I couldn't count them. We had a fantastic remote tech team. None of it was government money. And this was kind of important for later. The government did not have a part in this, which actually created a bit of a vulnerability. Some of the outcomes were that there was more accountability for the Marae Trust. The Marae Trust previously had only met in person, so it was only locals. Remember, that population was only 80. They were either older people or very children. So the being able to choose from people and have a range of skills perhaps, or networks, it was quite limited to the in-person only. This brought in people and relations from all over the world, some of whom had never even been home. The marae became a venue of choice for events because of that connectivity, and it was fast connectivity. When they had big events, so they have the yearly fishing competitions. If you're a fisherman, that's the place to go around the new year. They had mussel festival and sports events, and of course now they could have kiosks, so things like the coffee kiosk or the takeaway, whatever it is, kiosk could turn up and they could get FPOS and they could do internet banking because of that connectivity. But then in 2021, Vodafone had been bought out. My Republic, the internet service, had been sold or was about to be sold, I think to 2 degrees. And the femto sale came to end of life. Everything got switched off and the whole place went dark. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I've never heard of this going backwards. What are we going to do? At the same time, if you look at that year, we were in the middle of COVID. Lockdowns and restrictions were happening. All of the philanthropic funding had just dropped to a really low level. And it was just really disheartening to see that the community up there had just gone dark, just like that, overnight. However, I spoke to one of them last week, and I was happy to hear that MB, which is our Ministry for Business, Innovation and Employment, had given them some funding, and they now have an IT room, I was told. I don't know what's in there, but it's an IT room. The laundry has been moved out, and they got solar power on the way. So I don't know whether they're going to get mobile connectivity again. That one might be a little later. They feel that as long as they've got Wi-Fi calling, they're fine, as long as they don't lose their landline. So this is a message for Chorus. This is one of those communities, if you take their landline away, there will be problems for that community, particularly in weather events and emergencies. So that's Miti Miti on a grid. You saw that photo before. I'm going to show you the next photo of after they did all this, pulled all the walls off and put everything back together. This was the result. So it's a beautiful little humble gathering building for the local hapu, the sub-tribe. So that's that project. Workforce, I've got 12 minutes left. I think I'm doing okay. That's we should be okay. So I wanted to talk about the Māori Tech workforce with these 2 examples. So 2 Aotea, if you recall, is the Māori Spectrum service. The group, it's a collective Māori-owned company and organisation that received spectrum assets from the Crown in 2022, and there's more to come. So that's 2 Aotea, and then Cybersecurity 99 is my company, which is a subsidiary of my parent company. And there's purpose in both of them, and it might look like the purposes are different, but you'll see in a minute why they're kind of quite similar. So problem number 1 that we had for 2 Aotea was there is a severe shortage of skills in the telco sector, so this is technical engineering skills. We have here in New Zealand an ageing skilled workforce who are nearing retirement, and a teeny tiny little pipeline of younger ones coming through. So there's a heavy reliance on immigration to fill the skills gap. This negatively impacts, of course, our capability to deliver telco services and infrastructure, and it's a bit of a risk that everybody's talking about right across the telco sector here. The key things that we're interested in from the Tū Aotearoa point of view is resilience and security and rural connectivity. Looking over to Cybersecurity 99, we have another set of problems. One of them is that 80% of ransomware attacks, for example, just one example, happen with SMEs, small to medium enterprises. These are organisations that have less than 1,000 employees. They have become a little bit of a target for hackers. There is cybersecurity inequity around the world, particularly at the level below government and the big corporates. If you look one level below there, you'll see that there are medium-sized enterprises, non-government organisations, and a real variability around their cybersecurity services. That means that they are vulnerable across that whole sector. They are uneven. Increasingly, we're seeing that global regulations are requiring a certain level of compliancy for cybersecurity in order to trade and work with companies in different countries, for example. We know that in the SME sector, that vulnerability there, and because of the interconnectedness of systems, means that the whole ecosystem is at risk. And then looking at some of the data that I've seen more recently, the SME sector is considered to be at moderate to extreme risk of cyber attacks. So there's something in there that we need to solve, right? Problem 3 is closer to home. So we have young Māori workforce coming through. Our demographic, if you look at the demographic of age groups from young to more senior people, there is a very big cohort sitting at the bottom end of this. And at the top end, it's smaller. But our non-Māori population at the top end, it's big. So we have a very big, across-the-board general population at the older age group and a very young Māori population, which by 2043 will be 1/3 of the population between 1 and 14. Now the issue for us is that Māori are not entering STEM subjects, science, tech, engineering and maths, which means they're not being positioned to be working in tech sector or the telco sector. So this is a very interesting solution that we need to solve. Today, Māori in the tech sector is considered to be about 4.8%. Keep in mind that the population is about 20%, so we have a misalignment. However, one of the things that my company does is do a report every year on Māori-owned tech companies called Toi Hangarau, and in Māori-owned tech companies, the tech staff inside them is 24%, not 4.8%. So we really wanted to dig down why, what's happening there, there's something good in the water, right? And wanted to understand that when we think about workforce. So first of all, Māori-owned tech companies build their tech workforces in-house. They're not necessarily going and finding them out there on the job sites or pulling them out of universities or wherever. They're actually putting the investment into their existing workforce. They also train them on the tech skills that they need specific to their companies. So they're very vertical, I guess, in their knowledge. But once you get vertical in one thing, it opens the door to the other parts of the tech sector that you might be able to move into, because now you feel more confident, you're a little bit more familiar with the tech sector and the fields that come with it too. There's no blockages in those companies to leadership positions. Culturally friendly environment. There are no cultural misalignments sitting in those companies for Māori tech people. And the last one, there's no mollycoddling. I don't know if it's a familiar phrase for those of you who don't speak English as a first language, but mollycoddling is like babying people, you know, it's all right, we'll look after you, you can be a sookie in the corner. It's not that. In those companies, they're saying you need to step up, build your confidence. So the Future Māori Leaders is the first initiative out of Tū Aotearoa, and that looks at injecting lots and lots of support and investment into the learning and the leadership pathways, no matter where they start from. So for example, if you have students at university or high school, you'd start there and you'd walk alongside them and provide the opportunities and support they need to walk along a leadership pathway. If they're already in a mid-level, say mid-management role in a company somewhere, already in the sector, then you would help them take those next steps into more senior roles as you go along, so that the target isn't just entry level and stop there. The target is on the pathway towards leadership. So the people who will join this program are people who have aspirations to become our future leaders in the sector. Now this is telco, but there are adjacent technology topics or subject areas as well. So the width and breadth of this does move into other tech areas, and IoT is a really obvious one. Anything that requires connectivity could potentially fall into this program. The other thing we did was get some numbers down. We wanted to benchmark. This project hasn't started yet, it's just starting now. So we got some numbers done around the economic impact of this. So these numbers are that. So looking at a single cohort, say, of 50 participants in the Future Māori Leaders program, we're looking at a social benefit of 16 mil and a return on investment of 400%. And if you go down to the next little paragraph, 3 cohorts, 700% return on investment. And there's also the multiplier flow-on effects of having people with higher incomes and how that impacts the other parts of the economy as well. So this is our benchmark. This is what we're starting with. In the first year, we're going to be looking to reach some of these KPIs and then push them up even higher. For the cybersecurity, the inequity issue, we've got 2 programs. One is the affordability program, which says that if you're an SME as part of a group or an NGO with membership organisations, let's talk about your collective, and then because of that scale, let's drop the cost of your cybersecurity services down as we go. So those umbrella organisations could be anywhere in the world. I give the example of, for example, the World Wildlife Fund might have thousands of organisations around the world. If an organisation like that collectivised its cybersecurity service, suddenly the price drops down, but then also you get less variability amongst those organisations. The other one that we've been hearing from people is a good starting point is the cybersecurity gap assessment, which tells you where the gaps are. But what happens quite often is the company that does that assessment says, oh, you've got these 5 gaps. Well, it just so happens I can fix those gaps for you, just give me some more money. And that hard sell approach puts people off. So we've separated out. We've just said just the gap assessment, and then where you go after that's up to you. We take the conflict away. The other one is my favourite part of this program is the Under Our Wing, which says that if, let's say the World Wildlife Fund, have an organisation somewhere in the Asia Pacific, somewhere in Africa, somewhere in the Pacific Islands, and they're doing, say, a gap assessment there, then asking that client to nominate someone from their community to sit alongside the team and learn about what we're doing. And that could be their first view of a cybersecurity career, for example, to be a part of that community. So the idea is to train at home, stay at home, and serve at home. That's it. That's pretty much me. I mentioned, of course, at the bottom there, there's my LinkedIn address there. The call to action for you is if there's anything that you've heard that you'd like to come and see me about, whether you participate in it, collaborate in it, whether you have a project, whether you have a pipeline of people who might be interested in anything I've talked about, please contact me there. I welcome it. Nō reira, tēnā tātou katoa.
Thank you, Robin, for finishing on time and also for sharing that remote internet challenges, setting up the network in the remote areas. John will be between us and the lunch. I invite John Brothan, Consulting Engineer, Telco Limited, delivering, what's he talking about, John? Broadband to rural Aotearoa, which is New Zealand, correct? Yeah, thank you. And the timer is up on the screen there. So, I know, that's what I said.
Tēnā koutou katoa, Jonathan Brewer, and as you can tell from my accent, I'm from New Zealand. I live in Wellington. I've lived in Wellington for 21 years now. My family, small family, lives in the United States. Prior to that, coming from Poland and Romania and from the north of England. Thank you so much, Ipurangi Aotearoa Internet New Zealand, for hosting this event. Thank you, APNIC, for having this event, and thank you, all of you, for coming. I I can't believe how many people are in the room. You beautiful people, look at all of you. It's so great. So great to see you here at home. You're here. And thank you for taking the time to come here, because it is a real journey, as you have found out. And we've got a picture of the wind here. And see, you've met the wind? I had so many text messages and photos of people saying, John, how do you live with this? This is spring. Thank you. This is just spring. This is like this in the windiest city in the world. So about Aotearoa. This country is highly urbanized. As you can see around you, we've got this tiny little city surrounding a harbor, beautiful hills, a lot of people right in one place. But it's also very sparsely populated. And so I made this chart here that shows all of the countries in the world and their rates of urbanization. So how concentrated their populations are, and then the overall population per square kilometer of the market. There are very few places in the world that are more urbanized or have a more concentrated population. Very few countries in the world. Places like Iceland and Finland, where you might have Finland, you might have a vast country area, but most of your people are living really small towns, and then the rest of the country, not so much. Like this. This is 40 kilometers away from here. If you're flying, you get over there in about 15 minutes. And in this picture, we can see a couple of farms. And across all of these farms and forests, I think around 10 people live here in this photo full-time. I know almost all of the people. The previous photo was taken there, that little dot, and you can see you are here in the middle of Wellington. And this is a residential population density map, and the lightest blue squares, the very lightest blue squares, are 5 people in a 250 meters square plot. So this is kind of micro here, but you can see going out not too far away from here, we have little dots here and there, little dots here and there, and big areas of white space. And it takes quite a long time to drive to get to some of these remote places. And yet there are families with children who go to school. There are people who go out to work on these properties, people who live out there, people who have to visit them to work, people who have to go and deliver supplies for the farming, pick up animals, pick up produce, and so on. So the country is full of people, but they're very, very spread out. This is the Queenstown Lakes District, and my friends and customers at Wireless in Queenstown. So we have a lot of small networks. Again, an exceptional amount of small networks. So thank you, Jeff Houston and the research team at APNIC for your AS stat measurements, which I drew from to make this chart. We have almost the fewest median users per ASN. So we've got lots and lots and lots of small ASNs, and we have almost the highest number of autonomous systems per capita in the world. So who else is up there with us? Hong Kong and Singapore. And these are much smaller places than New Zealand. I mean, Singapore is about the same size in population, but I've run across almost all of Singapore. I can certainly bicycle across Singapore in about 3 hours. So, and New Zealand, not so much. So we have a huge space. And in terms of the amount of networks we have, for the amount of people that we have, yeah, it's really unusual. And this talk will be a little about why we're so strange, why we're so different when it comes to having so many networks. This is a photo from my friends at Amurinet in North Canterbury. So that's just north of Christchurch. And photo from my friends at Evolution Wireless in Gisborne. I think this one is just right above the city of Gisborne and helps them get network out into some of the more remote areas. So we have a very complex ecosystem of providers in New Zealand. We have our 3 mobile network operators. One New Zealand, who I hope sent somebody today. Spark, who I know sent some people today. And 2 Degrees, who I'm sure sent some people today. We have some infrastructure providers who don't sell directly to customers, and 11 wholesale fiber companies. So we have 11 companies that don't sell directly to end users. All they do is provide fiber infrastructure that retail service providers can use in their networks. We have 8 other companies that provide telecommunications infrastructure. One of those is now owned by Tuatia, my friend Robin's company mentioned earlier. And so Tuatia owns a company called JDA, who own towers, co-location facilities, and they're a wholesale, they sell to network operators. We have 9 ISPs that provide satellite services, 94 retail ISPs, 55 wireless ISPs at least, and 7 small ISPs that are doing both wireless and fiber. So more than 80 infrastructure providers in this little country. This is Primo Wireless in Taranaki. And this is, again, a Murinet in North Canterbury. We have a lot of ISPs with active ASNs. Now, these, again, AS stats measurements allow me to rank them. The AS stat measurements don't pick up every ASN, so there are probably more ISPs with active ASNs, but these 90 in this list are the ones that I could find that are actually ISPs with active traffic last week. And you're here, so I'm going to thank Dion and Mike at Extreme Networks, who are one of the bandwidth providers. I'm going to thank Karen and the entire team at Mercury, who are the other bandwidth providers. So if you're here on the Wi-Fi, you are using Extreme Networks and Mercury for your upstream internet. This is a photo from my friends at Rex Networks in the Bay of Plenty. And from Chris Meyer at Kiwi Wi-Fi in Nelson. So a brief history of internet in New Zealand. And I'm calling out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of key events in the evolution of this country's ecosystem that has led to having so many small infrastructure providers and such a rich and competitive market, even in really remote places. Market was deregulated in 1989. That was a big step. I think New Zealand was world leading in its deregulation of the industry, and the post office telecom company was privatized. And things went pretty slow then. We had a few internet service providers kind of pop up in that time before the year 2000. You know, the internet was nascent. There wasn't a lot going on. We didn't have submarine cable connectivity in Aotearoa until 2001. So you would have been going over satellite to get to the rest of the world if you were using a dial-up internet service provider in the 90s. In 2001, something, in addition to having a submarine cable land, something special happened. We had a set of radio communications regulations published, which opened up radio spectrum for anybody to use. Anybody. Now, one of the things I should say about the 89 deregulation is the market was set up so that you don't need a license to provide telecommunications service. So these early ISPs, they didn't have to go to the government and ask for permission. They just started their ISP. They didn't need a license. They didn't need any paperwork. They just started an ISP, and that was okay. So in 2001, kind of the same thing happened with radio spectrum. Some parts of the radio spectrum were opened up under a general user license so that anybody could go and use, as long as you play by the rules, use the published rules, use the radio spectrum, use that radio spectrum in your home, in your business, or to provide service for other people. And at that point, we had a bunch of little companies enter the market providing ISP services or infrastructure over open spectrum. Now things kicked along a little bit, and it was relatively hard to build infrastructure on public land until around 2008, where the government released a set of standards for building infrastructure. National environmental standards for telecommunications facilities that say, if you want to build a tower on the side of the road in a public space, here are the rules. It can be this tall, it can be this wide, it has to be set this far back from the road. And by the way, if you follow these rules, the local council, the local government can't interfere. You don't need to get a permit from the local government to build if you're following these rules. Now, my friends from the Philippines will know that it can take 54 permits to get a cell phone tower built anywhere. My friends from Singapore, Gerald. Oh boy, it's hard to build anything in Singapore too. It sure is. Most of our region is very difficult to build infrastructure, and these national environmental standards make it quite easy to build infrastructure. What else happened? Another big thing happened in 2011, and that was the structural separation of the market. And this is super boring stuff, isn't it? Anyway, we had an incumbent provider, Telecom New Zealand, that had the fixed line infrastructure and mobile infrastructure, and they made it really hard for people to use their broadband. It made it really hard for competing ISPs to get access to the copper lines or fiber cables to have competitive services over this existing infrastructure. This infrastructure, which was built by the government of New Zealand when the company was owned by the government. And so it had been privatized. We had a not really ideal situation, and that changed. In 2011, the government motivated and legislated, mostly motivated, Telecom New Zealand to split into an infrastructure provider and a retail provider. And this infrastructure provider can't sell directly to end users. All they can do is sell to retail providers. This is when we start seeing a lot of new ISPs enter the market. This history only has infrastructure ISPs, but as you know, we have 94 ISPs not building infrastructure. A lot of those popped up after 2011. What else happened? In 2012, the government kicked off a program of low-cost loans and investments in fiber providers. This is how we ended up with 11 companies building fiber. They said, we'll invest in your company to 4 companies. We'll invest in your company. We'll give you low-cost loans as long as you build fiber infrastructure where we ask you to, and you provide that fiber infrastructure at a particular cost and particular service levels. Those service levels started out quite modest, 100 megabits per second down and 30 megabits per second up. I'm sorry, Australia, this is modest, okay? This is modest. Today, those entry-level rates are 300 megabits per second down and 100 megabits per second up for the kind of lowest cost product. And most people are on 1,000 megabits or more for their home connectivity. This is our ultra-fast fiber, and we had a rural broadband program, and Robin mentioned that the connectivity of the fiber to Midi-Midi on the grid was installed as part of that. And one of the main goals of that program was to bring fiber directly to 1,900 schools across New Zealand. I guess the goal of that was to get fiber to more than 97% of all schools. And the nice thing about that fiber is it's all open access. So once the fiber gets to the school, Midi-Midi on the grid can extend that fiber and use it for cellular connectivity, or my wireless ISP customers can make a microwave link to the school and bring that fiber up to their towers for their rural and remote communities. This is a picture of Uniphone, my friends from Southland, and I think this is around Balclutha. So how did we get here? Summarizing my big, long speech on the timeline there. Deregulation, open radio spectrum, common national infrastructure standards, a structurally separated market, high fiber availability. At this point, we have fiber to probably 98% of all properties in the country. We have fiber everywhere. It's amazing. And finally, smart subsidies for rural infrastructure. And I hope I'll remember to pick that up in some later slides. Is Keith Davidson in the room? Keith. Keith was around for our PAC IGF the last 2 years. Keith, I think he's an ICANN board member. He ran an ISP in the Wairarapa called WiseNet. And back in 2005, maybe, this is one of my dishes that I installed on a tower in the Wairarapa that was providing backhaul to all of his ISP called WiseNet. So this was a 10 megabit per second link. It was a big deal back then. But my company did not have to apply to the government for a license to be an infrastructure telecommunications provider. I didn't have to apply to the regulator for access to the radio spectrum. I just opened a company, which is something at that point you could do online with a couple of clicks. Upload your form with your signature and you're done. Didn't have to do anything. I had to obey the rules of using the radio spectrum, and I had to have a private arrangement with the tower owner, but it wasn't an impediment. So this is what the microwave spectrum availability looks like. Again, anyone can use it. You don't have to have permission if it's green. If it's blue, also anyone can use it. You do have to engage a radio engineer, but it's there's no auctions involved for the spectrum. If the spectrum is available, you have a license made for you. This is something that I do for my customers. I help them use this radio spectrum to connect their networks together and to connect from their networks to their customers. This is a picture from my customer Uniphone down in Southland, and I'm going to guess this is Central Otago from what the scenery looks like. And this from my customer InspireNet in the north. InspireNet were one of the early ISPs. They started as a dial-up ISP in 1998. They're also one of the early fiber providers in that they started building fiber in their community in around 2004, 2005. National environmental standards for telecommunications. Of course, I mentioned and explained this before. There's a user's guide. You don't have to go and look at the legislation. You can actually go and look at a user's guide that has pictures and diagrams and easy to understand text. AmiriNet, I showed you some of their wireless towers before. They're building rural fiber. And of course, these standards cover rural fiber. You can see that little green box set a little way away from the road. That's, again, legislated by the National Environmental Standards. They have built fiber where the big companies couldn't find a way to make a profit. They found a way to do it. So structural separation. The incumbent was split into independent retail and wholesale. All fixed line copper and fiber is available for any ISP to use and sell to their customers. We're going to turn copper off in this country very soon. So copper is going to go away, I would say another couple of years at the most. And they've already started retiring rural copper systems. So we do have this idea of registered network operators. You can get your network operator registered, and that allows you to build on public land. If you're not registered, you have to stick to private land, or you have to use infrastructure providers who are registered network operators. Anyway, prior to the market transformation, the structural separation, we had 14 before 2011. Now we have 63. So you can see, deregulation happened in 2009. but it took a long time for the market to really explode. And what happened there that made the market explode was the structural separation, was making sure that one company didn't control the whole path. Not all infrastructure operators are registered. Anyway, the moral of the story is that low regulation, light regulation has led to permissionless innovation, huge amounts of innovation. We can see innovation here with my friends from Accelerate Wireless in Blenheim. And you're looking down over Cloudy Bay, Sauvignon Blanc. So if you've had Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand, you're seeing where it's grown. And I think the main winery is down there for Cloudy Bay too. The ultra-fast broadband and rural broadband initiative. This is where I get into talking about smart subsidies a bit. Originally was designed to bring open access broadband to 87% of the population. That's since stepped up a few times, led to a massive jump in availability and speed, expanded 3G rural voice coverage and data coverage, funded Vodafone New Zealand to build towers, but these towers had to be open access. So they needed to have room for local providers to put their infrastructure on the towers. They needed to have a mechanism for those local infrastructure providers to share the fiber installed at the towers or the microwave links so that they could get backhaul too. A wholesale wireless service was provided, and yeah, there was open access rural fiber, which just changed everything. So here is a picture of my customer Kiwi Wi-Fi, their connection down to a school. And the reason their microwave is going down to a school is because that school has rural broadband infrastructure fiber. And so they have a link from the school. I think they've said to the school, here's your free broadband. We're going to pay for your retail broadband service as long as you let us put a dish on your roof. And they did, and they take broadband gigabit per second up the hill, and they distribute it out to the areas beyond the reach of fiber and copper. The Rural Broadband Initiative 2 is the smart subsidy part. They used detailed GIS data down to individual pinpoints on maps of people's homes with understanding of how many people were living in those homes. And they said to the rural providers, we have a need. These people aren't being covered. What would it cost you to build this? And as a result of that program, they found that the large incumbents were not able to deliver to all of these super remote places. What happened? 15 different regional providers got money to build infrastructure, just build infrastructure, towers, roads to towers, power lines, battery banks, solar arrays. The focus of this funding was 20-year infrastructure, not little bits of equipment that can be obsolete in 7 years, but just the infrastructure. And they left it to the providers to pay for the electronics, the routers, the low-cost radios, and so on. The other thing that happened as a part of this RBI2, because the big providers really didn't want to miss out, they formed a joint venture company. The 3 mobile network operators own a 4th company, and this 4th company just exists to build rural and remote towers. All 3 operators provide their services off of these cute little towers, and they are little. A lot of these towers are 6 meters tall. And some of them, many of them, provide to fewer than 50 people. There are 600 of these towers around the country now, 600 micro towers, most of them providing to fewer than 50 people. They found a way to make this economic over the long term. The purple dots on this map of the region of Hawke's Bay, these are those shared cell phone towers. You can see the red, blue, and green. These are the mobile network operators. Their towers are concentrated in the urban-ish areas. Only 3% of the population lives in this huge region, but they're concentrated in the towns. And then you've got these purple shared towers out in the rural areas. But here's one of the wireless ISP towers in that region. And this is a map of the wireless ISP towers, just the wireless ISP towers. In this region that covers 3% of the country, we have more than 400
wireless ISP towers. A lot of these towers are providing to fewer than 10 users. They have found a way to make it economic to deliver to 10 households with a shared tower. Here's one of those shared towers for my customer Uber in Northland. But they haven't just stopped with towers. They have found that if you have people living along a street, you have 10 houses within a kilometer or two, it's now economic, especially since the cost of fiber is so low, to trench fiber in and build GPON. It's not always possible to connect these isolated fibered up neighborhoods to the core with fiber. So sometimes they use microwave. Occasionally, I think they use satellite, but they're building local fibered communities. They're building them at low cost. They're building them in an economic way. And sometimes it's not so small. So again, this is back to Amurinet, who probably have a few hundred houses in the north of Canterbury on fiber now. And that's it. I leave you with a photo of me 18 years ago. I don't do this anymore.
Thank you, John, for that interesting graphical presentation. He just finished on time, so go for a lunch break. But before that, I'd like to ask Jerong, Kenny, Robin, Sarai, Vivian, John to stay in the room for a group photo, please, after the end of that. We missed the evacuation briefing and we don't have time to do it, but please, if something goes wrong, just follow the APNIC staff and convention staff lead. Touch wood, nothing will go wrong. The next session will be at 2:30 p.m. and it will be split into two rooms, this one and the Rongamatan C. The lunch will be served in the foyer area. If you are spreading the word, please use hashtag APNIC58 on the social media. Kamihi Kia Pai Tora. Thank you and have a good day. So just quickly take the photo, group photo. Robin, Robin, John, Sarai, Robin.
I am going to call your mommy. Mira, me talk, make you feel real comfortable. Can you feel my finger raise my hand? I won't do is a little dance. I don't need hugs. I'm the floor. Your next move, I think you come. In fact, shook your hand. You're happy, you can't stand. Made me high then low. Told me let's take it slow. Next thing that I know, you got a next best hope. Summer soon, body snows, yeah. Soon too, you'll find out that. But you just wanna roll, and all I think is whoa.